Hello and welcome back.
Thanks for joining us for another episode.
I'm James Skiffins.
And I am called Malcolm Childs, and we are just making conversation.
We will discuss the ins and outs of the model making hobby that brings us joy and pain in equal measure.
From the greasy sprues to gloss coats and everything in between, we are just making conversation. And remember, there are other podcasts that you can listen to.
Plastic Model Mojo.
The Scale Model Podcast.
Plastic Posse Podcast.
On the Bench.
Model Geeks.
The Sprue Cutters Union.
Small Subjects.
And Built Sideways.
And another one is Model by Garb Hoden.
Head to modelpodcasts.com for all those links.
If you enjoyed our podcast, consider leaving a 5-star review, as it promotes the podcast to more people to enjoy.
Showing your support to us is as easy as making a coffee. In fact, why not go over to buymeacoffee.com/JMC podcast and do just that. Your support will make the podcast a little bit better, maybe. In this episode, we were just making conversation about our day release to the Imperial War Museum in Duxford in the UK. With enormous hangars, gigantic aircraft, a live airfield, there is a wide collection of personal stories from those who have lived, fought and died in the conflict of First World War to present day.
Our carers clearly just wanted some time off and packed us off to dribble over the wonders that were on offer. From the Land Warfare Museum to the fascinating American Air Museum and so much more.
So our goal was to try and find some reference pictures and information about the amazing P-51 Mustang for my upcoming Musaru build, and of course, to enjoy a day out with my friend James. Let's go through some comments. We've got quite a few, I think.
Yeah, we've been busy, really busy. We've had an expanse of posts that we put up, 2 more than normal. Let's go over to the Buy Me a Coffee cafe. A massive thank you to Paint All the Minis Peter, who bought us some coffees. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And he left a comment, of course, which says, always a good time listening to you Walnutters. Much love. So much love back. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, much love back.
Big hugs and all that sort of stuff.
And then on Facebook was in reference to our previous episode, mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Paul Gallagher said, there are mistakes that are part of the fun of learning, and then there are those that are born from inattention. I'm pretty good at those. Like, how many times am I going to be masking for camouflage and then realise that I've flipped the light and dark areas?
Well, we've all been there, Paul. Definitely.
Oh, it's really easy to do. You really have to concentrate and where you are, and your mind drifts and suddenly you've flipped, yeah.
Yeah, so easily done. Also, one of the other posts we put up, I did a paint test for the new Humbrol Gen 2 paints.
Yes, you did.
Which was really fun to do, not something I've done before. Tom Parkin says, what's the verdict? I'm excited to try these. And yes, so you should be. I think Humbrol have done a cracking job. I paint tested them. They went down really, really smoothly. No hassles or issues at all. The only thing that they haven't released as such for me to try was their thinner. But I was using a thinner that I use with all the acrylics I use anyway. So it was good in a way because there was nothing out of the ordinary. It's like I'd gone and bought them and tried them myself. So a big thank you to Humbrol for letting me do that and supplying a few pots for me to try. But the verdict is good. I think they're on the right track. Talking to them, they have got a few things in which they're still tinkering with. Mm-hmm. That grumble we have about Humbrol acrylics may just be a thing of the past.
Okay. Well, we'll see what people think. I guess you spread them in the heat.
The upside to that test was it was done in the UK's heat wave. So I was actually in my hobby room and it was about 32, 33 degrees. I don't know what the humidity was, but I can tell you I was sweating in places that were illegal to sweat. So it was quite humid, I can tell you. If you manage to get hold of Gen 2s at all and you have a play, then please tell me what you think as well. Could be good to have your feedback. The test that I did was through the airbrush, and I asked everyone's opinion whether they would like me to try it with a hairy stick. And the general verdict was yes, please. So there will be another video going out with a a test of the paints with the hairy stick using the same thinner that I used. So there's nothing dodgy going on. That'll be out relatively soon, and we'll see how it goes.
Well, I look forward to receiving my free paints too. In reference to a post I put up about the Armour model P-51 Mustang, I put some photographs up, and I talked about a little bit, and there have been some nice comments about that. So starting from Stefan, he says, "You're going to hurt my bank balance at this rate. I started the Wildcat this morning. I've done most of the sub-assemblies, and it's been fitting together like a dream. I hope you have the same experiences." Thank you, Stefan.
Thanks, Stefan.
Yes, they look like lovely kits. I haven't even built it yet, but I know that, well, if all 1/2 kits look like this, I'd be more than happy. Thank you for your comments. Jeff has said, "Glad that you have taken all those pictures, Malcolm, as I dove into it as a representative from the Scale Model podcast. It's a beautiful kit, but the instructions can be difficult. Look out for small errors. Ask me how I know." Doesn't say which ones.
No.
It's just like a general, oh, look out for this. Spoiler alert.
Why take away the fun for you?
I will be looking out for those mistakes. He says it blows the Airfix kit out of the water, in my humble opinion. Also, the Armour Hobbies website has some very useful photographs of the various options. I will go and check that out. I did try and look, but maybe I missed them. Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Cool. Will Patterson made a comment as well. "Outstanding. It seems like it's been all super secret in previous years, but I like it better when it's all out in the open. So I'm glad you posted this." Yeah, sometimes it can feel a little bit like that. We try and involve the community in it as well. That's all part of the fun, isn't it? Get some interactions and feedback.
Yeah.
And small things like Jeff just pointed out, watch out for the number errors. If we didn't advertise the fact we were doing it, we wouldn't know, would we? So
yeah. I understand why they do the top secret side of things, but I'm quite happy to share all the foibles and difficulties I have with it. If I do have any problems, I will show you.
And there'll probably be less teasing this year because I'm not in charge. So,
are you telling me you're not going to tease me?
I probably will tease you, but I might not tease the other podcasts. I'm a little worried because we've got new guys, haven't we? So
yeah, yes.
I don't want to poke the bear too much. You know what I mean?
There's more bears to be poked. Let's just leave it as it is and a super friendly competition.
Absolutely. And just to comment on that, we were invited over to Canada for the big reveal. Well, we don't have to, but it would be nice if we can get it over to Canada. So I've made up the little posters that we can hold on the side of the road. Stick our thumb out with a little poster saying, "We're going here."
I have no problem with sending it to Canada at all. Sent back to sender, built. So saying not known at this address and, I built it as well. I've not a problem sending it back. I'll pack it well and send it, if that's okay. But I know that they just want some photographs for the competition.
Yeah, that's right.
Also, it all depends on how I do. If I build it bad, then I will send it in bits. And then say, "Oh no, it arrived in bits. Someone's going to have to put it back together. Someone way more competent than me."
Oh, I like that idea. That's really cool.
We have taken this Musaru Cup build so seriously, we have done research. The ultimate research.
Yeah, ultimate, indeed. Ultimately trying to stop you from licking an airplane. Yeah, that's full on.
What better way to research something? What better way to find out the information you need than looking at it with your own eyeballs, experiencing the vehicle right in front of you, the smells and the sights, and taking 280 photographs.
And that's just from one person.
Yeah, that was me. So, shall we go into what we did?
We decided to drive up to Duxford, which for me is only about half an hour away, but for Malcolm it's a little bit further.
It's 2.5 hours drive. At the last minute, I found out that I was picking you up, but that's fine. I listened to podcasts on the way up. Forgot to tell you.
Ah.
I'm fully up to date.
Oh, you lucky thing, you.
I think it was Small Subjects. I think it was.
Oh.
Their interview with Pat McGrath about the play.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You did, yeah.
It's great. It's called Small Plastic Wars, a little drama. It's all about a scale modeler and his experience with bad times and how model making improved his day.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm all about that, as you know. So yeah, go listen to that. It's really funny. I have heard it before this interview with Soul Subjects. I have been doing a lot of work on the shed, and I had to put some stuff down while I was working because it was just too funny, and I couldn't concentrate on sawing straight. Go and have a listen to Small Plastic Wars. It's really good. So yeah, I picked you up in the morning, and we headed up to the Imperial War Museum in Duxford.
Yeah, and they let us in, which is quite amazing.
They did. What was the issue with the tickets? What was that?
It was really weird. We picked the youngest person at the till. The ticket machine was open, all naked. It just didn't print properly.
Oh.
Someone came over and blew the dust out and then hand wrote us our ticket.
Right.
Both Malcolm and I have been to the museum a couple of times, but Malcolm had never been to the Far Reaches, which is the furthest part of the museum, to the land warfare.
Yeah.
So in this, how would you call it, hangar?
Big storage facility. And the reason I've never got that far up the hill to the land warfare bit is because I always get stuck at the American Air Museum and never get any further.
They've laid it out on it's a 2-level thing. Basically, you've got a very narrow, a couple of meters wide observation area, so you can look down on all the exhibitions that are there. But we didn't do that. We went straight down the stairs and straight into World War One and started looking around the exhibits.
Yeah, we did. Yeah,
and nicely laid out. The only thing we both commented on was it was a little bit dark. More for photos, really. You could viewing it in person, fine. But yeah, they've done their best with the lighting. But yeah, so we went straight into the trenches and wandered around looking at the different types of artillery that were there.
We did comment on the lighting, didn't we? I think it's been done on purpose, to be honest, and I guess it's kind of what they have to work with in terms of the building. It does give it a kind of stark, serious atmosphere.
In my head, I hadn't really connected those dots until you said it. As we walked around through the exhibits, we went from the First World War into the Second World War, of which there were some really good diorama sort of settings, if you like, because it's all pretty much set out as trenches or broken down buildings, or there's a story between each piece. So that's good. You come to the end of the building, which is the D-Day section.
Oh, yeah.
Now, if you want a mood moment, that is a mood moment, because what they've done is that they've done the entrance to that area as a landing craft, which you've got one lovely mannequin screaming at you, move your backside and get through, with all the sound effects that you would expect in the opening credits of Saving Private Ryan. So it really sets the scene really well. That was the moment I suddenly twigged and went, yeah, no, you're right. I think they have done it on purpose.
I skipped right the way through that bit, and there was lots of video playing as well, wasn't there? Perhaps if I was there with my family or the kids, I would take my time through that. But yeah, it was very good.
A little bit later on, I skipped back for a reference picture that I wanted and left you up on the upper deck, so to speak. But as I went through the landing craft, there was a parent with some children. The children were questioning a few bits and pieces about the noises and what they were seeing. And the parent was explaining to them, they're trying to recreate exactly how it would have felt on the day and how scary would you maybe have felt, etc. I didn't stop and listen, but I caught that as I walked through. So yeah, it's definitely a thing and works incredibly well.
Yeah, go and see it if you're up that way and you're going to Duxford. Go and have a look at that bit. I like it. And then through there was all the World War II. And there's a couple of things that you had and certainly an interest in.
Yes. Well, I mean, we couldn't get past the half track to start with because one of your friends
Gary
was building something, so you were taking lots of pictures and reference pictures and stuff. The annoying part that I found, although I didn't say this on the day, but the annoying part I found was the usefulness that is to be tall. Obviously, I can't take pictures of inside the vehicles, but Malcolm just happens to just put it up next to his face and he's looking directly into the vehicle. No matter how tall it is, he can still do it.
Yeah.
So, you were busy doing that, and I was wandering around looking at a few dioramas there as well of the D-Day landers, etc., which were quite cool. But I happened to notice in the corner of the building the K2 ambulance, Austin K2. There is a funny story behind this, in the fact that those of you following me on YouTube may have noticed that I've done a review of the new Airfix kit, and I'm about to do a review of the equivalent from Gecko.
Oh, right, yeah.
Well, I say equivalent now, quite different beasts. But anyway, I wanted to get some reference pictures of the K2. I had, the day before, made a visit to the Army Museum to get some reference pictures. Talked to a very nice young lady who allowed me access into their storage unit.
Oh.
Because it's a storage unit, there may be the chance it might be parked up against a wall. When I got there, my concerns were realised. It was difficult to get some reference pictures, and it was parked up against a wall, but not the wall of the storage unit, but the Berlin Wall.
The Berlin Wall?
2 pieces of the Berlin Wall right next to the K2. So that was that was quite funny. I can officially say I have touched the Berlin Wall and then got immediately shouted at, "Don't touch the exhibits!" But I was trying to do I can only explain it as like a crab effect walk along the side of the ambulance.
Right.
To get to a position where I could take a picture, and I felt a little uncomfortable. But anyway, I diverse. So yes, the K2 was there, and surprisingly, it was parked in the corner of the exhibits, and all I could see was the back. So
so they parked it right up by the wall, and they'd opened one of the doors so that you couldn't even see down the other side because it was parked next to a truck. So you could only see the complete back. I wonder if that was done on purpose, because they could have folded that door all the way around so that it was flush with the side, but they hadn't. I wonder why. But you managed to get photographs anyway, using your superhuman photography skills.
Yeah, I sent off my special drone to get exclusive pictures.
Your long arms, you mean?
Well, yeah. They have got a little area there in which you've got Monty's caravan and the map room and all that sort of thing. It's all set up like a big 1-to-1 scale diorama. Very, very nice. Some great detail and great things, references you can get. But the funniest part about that section was you. Incredibly annoyed at the fact he couldn't try the helmet on that was attached to a bit of chain, which was obviously to stop it from falling on someone's feet, but hadn't taken into account a 6-foot-plus person wanting to try on a helmet. But I can report to you, he didn't bend his knees. Oh, no. He sort of crouched to try it on to say that he'd officially done it. No, he just stood there and had a strop. Like, look at this. How can I not put this on my head?
It's just another thing that us tall people have to endure. Another thing on the list. A short chain, so I can't even put the helmet on. Make sure the people who are short, they get to try on the helmet, but not me. So yeah, I wasn't going to get on my knees, put a thing on my head.
I was so poised there with the camera to catch the image, but you didn't do it.
Well, I could have pulled it really hard and hulked it off.
You would have had the desk hanging off your chain.
There was a huge tank transporter there. The Almany, was it?
It was the Almany, yeah.
Like 20, 30 feet long. Beautiful representation of the vehicle. Really cleaned up nice. It's got a Challenger 1 on the back. It was lovely to see it. They have a really nice example of a Scamble there. And what was interesting, you're talking about Monty stuff. It had Monty's bedroom there. All very low mood lighting.
I dragged Malcolm outside because there is actually an area. From time to time, they run the vehicles so you can watch them in action. A little bit like the Tank Museum does.
Yeah, and it's not signposted, is it?
No, it's not. It's not. I think because of COVID and all that, they haven't been doing any of that. But outside were a few examples of Russian vehicles and other things. I noticed the excitement that Malcolm had over chipping, how the paint discolors and fades. Oh my goodness, yes. He was really excited at looking at the rust lines and weathering of the vehicles. That took a good few pictures. And worth it.
There was like a container there or something. I don't know what it was. It didn't have a rope around it.
They had an example of the Bloodhound there, which I think you walked straight past.
Oh, right.
That was the control container, if you like. We stood there and discussed. Now, if you did that on a model, no one would believe that was correct.
Yeah.
The way the paint had peeled and how you might achieve that on a model, etc. It was quite funny, to be honest.
There was 4 separate panels on this unit, wasn't there? And one of them had all the chipping on it, paint peeling off. And I said, if you try to do some random chipping, it wouldn't look right. And do you remember on the side of one of the trucks where the rain had come down?
Yep.
There was 2 windows on the top and on the Russian trucks, and it pretty much cleaned underneath the windows. But on the outside, there's loads of rain marks.
Yeah.
And I guess we were saying, weren't we, because it's got the windows were probably stopping the rain coming down, and it was pooling in different places. Yeah. I thought that was really interesting. So I was nerding out about the streaks and the rust rather than the actual vehicles themselves.
Like I said to you, or in the introduction, we said that Google's not always your friend. They're the sort of pictures or images that you might see on the internet and go, I don't understand that. Why is that like that? But seeing it in person, you can start to understand a little bit more about what's going on.
Yeah, there was some beautiful Russian vehicles at the back there. And there was lots of other more modern armour out there. Something with the big tarp on it, so I took a photograph of that for tarp references. There was also, I'm not sure what it was, kind of low tank with a radar on top. That had all sorts of different chipping and paint flaking and rusting and all sorts of stuff going on it. So I took photographs of that for some sort of paint references, maybe.
Yeah, we've gone into nerd moment, haven't we?
Slightly. But, hey, this is what this is about, isn't it? Reference. It's about looking and the way of seeing and understanding the colours and the lights and the interactions between the two. The mixture of textures. And then we came out and we had an ice cream.
Yeah, while being buzzed by a Spitfire. After the ice cream, we decided to then head towards the hangars. And they have a hangar there which tells the story of the Battle of Britain.
Oh, no, we went to the American Air Museum first.
Oh, God, yeah, I totally skipped that. Yes, sorry.
We were there for about 3 hours. But, the American Air Museum, I was going to say it's relatively new, but it's not, is it? It's been there for a very long time, but 20 years plus. I remember a big public fanfare when it was built, because it was built into the hill, and they have enormous aircraft in there.
B-52 is basically the buildings being built around it. And then from the ceiling, you've got several aircraft hanging.
If a giant had a bedroom with aeroplanes hanging from it, that is what a giant's bedroom would look like.
Yeah, you got the F-15 in the middle. The Warthog, is it called?
Oh, the A-10.
That's hanging in the ceiling. And you've got a Dakota.
Yep.
P-47 is hanging from the ceiling. Dribble, dribble, dribble. My favourite. And then, of course, there it is. The P-51 Etta Gina, hanging in all its glory for you to wander under.
Yeah, it was really nice to be able to see it from underneath completely, with the wheels up to view it in its flying glory. And it's in a natural metal finish. Just to reiterate, the whole reason we went to Duxford was to study this Mustang, or a Mustang, and get some reference photographs for Muturu Cup competitions. I wanted to get a reference for oil stains. For the panels, I want to get reference points for the rivets and how it appeared. Anything that I could find that was of interest. And as museum pieces, the museum restores them as best they possibly can.
Yes.
But even so, there still remained some patina. There's still remained some staining that no amount of polishing is going to remove. There still was some, battle damage and some wear and tear.
The one thing that stuck out to us, obviously, was the different colorations that were on there, the different materials that we used, and the effects that the light had on it as well. But the other thing in which we noticed as well were gaps.
Oh, the gaps. I put a picture up on Facebook. The largest gap was the landing gear doors.
Yeah.
They were not flush. They were not symmetrical. They didn't fit. They were not closed.
No.
If you'd put that together as a model, someone may say, oh, well, your gear doors don't fit, and blame the kit. But that's exactly how it looks. You look really closely and study these things, and actually, that is that way. I found that quite extraordinary, to be honest. Also, you could see how flush all the rivets were, how completely flat the outside, but also every single panel seemed to be almost liquid and soft. It didn't seem like it was made out of hard metal. It seemed like it was rubber or something, because it was kind of tightly pulled around the frame and the rivets underneath. It wasn't all completely shiny metal either.
Certainly the sort of areas on the aircraft in which you probably would be really over worried about to make sure it was, you know, all shiny and all that. You could see the green that was the undercoat.
Yes.
In a few areas.
Yep.
And that's something in which I'd noticed while I was building the Helldiver that I'm building at the moment.
Okay.
And not something I'd really taken notice of before. So, yeah, that was quite cool to notice. We dribbled and drawled out all over the P-51, but we also looked at what was on the ground of the exhibition as well. On the ground, you've got the B-52.
That thing is so bloody big and so damn heavy. When it's full of fuel, the wings at the ends of the wings droop down and touch the ground. While it's in display mode with no fuel inside the wings, the wings don't come down to the floor. They float in the air. So they have to build a plinth on each wheel.
Yeah. You've got the Lockheed SR-71 Blackbird there.
Oh, yes.
Which I'm really surprised, actually, you didn't dribble over very much. We didn't spend any time that side, really. We sort of cursory looked.
Well, you know, when I went to the loo...
Oh, okay, you'd done that bit already, did you?
Do you remember? I said, I need to go to the loo. Yeah. You stayed at the top. I had to walk all the way around. The way that I went back took me a while to get back because I walked past the Blackbird. But I got loads of reference photographs, especially of underneath, because I've got the 148 Testers Blackbird to do. Honestly, it's just very, very dark grey and very dusty. So the model I have that's been sat here for the last 6 months is actually quite dusty anyway, so I'm halfway there. But that was awesome, seeing that. I'm quite tall, and it's quite a low aircraft. The wings are quite low, so I nearly knocked myself out on that. But yeah, but it was lovely. Yeah. They also got a Raptor there, the drone.
As a Predator.
Oh, is it? Sorry, yes.
The remotely piloted Predator hanging from the ceiling just above the Blackbird as well. That was quite interesting to see. As we walked around, you've got the B-17 Flying Fortress there. Then you've got the Liberator as well. The Liberator was having a little bit of work done to it, or seemed to be. So there was a crane for the crane for the crane, which I found quite amusing. How do you get that crane to hang from the ceiling? Well, you get a crane. Well, why don't you just use the crane that you're going to use for the crane to do the yeah, anyway.
You had a point. You did have a point.
Mainly the Liberator we were fascinated with, because obviously that's all shiny metal.
Oh, very shiny.
And the most exciting part for me, as we walked around, one of the engines had all the cowling grip back taken off. Literally from the very front all the way back through the exhaust system, etc., was all bare to see. And oh my God, there's a lot of stuff stuffed into that area. Really is. But that was interesting.
That was like an example of why we like aircraft, because that was awesome.
Yeah.
It was gorgeous. Looking at all those little bits and pieces that I have no idea what they are. I'm sure every single bit has its purpose, but it just kicked off something in my head that was joyful.
The other amusing part of the trip round Duncan, I wanted to get up close in the undercarriage, and I had taken a camera with me to do some videoing. I'm standing underneath the wheel bay, trying to take a video of the interior of the wheel bay. And I just suddenly thought to myself, why am I stretching up in the air like a Wally? I've got this really tall guy with me who just needs to put the camera on his head and put his head in there. Malcolm took over that and then said to me, wouldn't it be really funny if you drop your camera inside and you have to go and find someone to say, can you retrieve my camera, please?
You know, it's just like being at Tesco's.
Yeah.
There's a little old lady there that says, oh, excuse me, can you reach up to the top there and reach the cornflakes, because I want the 250 gram pack, not the 500 gram pack. I didn't think I'd have that same experience at Duxford.
That particular part of the museum is fantastic, and I can honestly say I can understand, especially when you're being really nerdy, that just that one little hangar you could spend all day in there.
Oh yeah, there's so much in there to talk about, we can't talk about it all.
So being conscious of time, as we are in the podcast, as we were on the day, we left that particular hangar. They have a restoration hangar.
Yep.
hangar that's dedicated to the Battle of Britain.
Though we didn't go in, there is an event coming up on the 17th of September at the Imperial War Museum. It's called The Battle of Britain. It's part of their Imperial War Museum in Conversation series. It's going to be packed full of lectures from guest speakers. There'll be 4 experts and 4 talks all in one day, all about the pivotal moment in history that was the Battle of Britain. If you're in the area on the 17th, I suggest you get onto their website, iwm.org, and book yourself a seat.
Yeah, definitely.
On our walk back to the hangars, we found a little tiny charity bookshop, actually on the airfield. And it was stacked to the rafters with books, magazines, articles, photographs, pictures and pictures, same thing, photographs, paintings, toys, models, instruments, all sorts of bits and pieces to do with aviation. Everything was nicely priced as well. The chap in there was really knowledgeable and he knew where everything was. It's all laid out nicely. They got 2 rooms. So if you're interested in books and looking for some reference in particular, then I suggest you go and visit that. I could have spent much longer in there than we did, to be fair, and more money. Have you been in there before?
I have, yeah. The last time I visited there was one of the air shows they did and found it there. If you want a reference book, oh my God, what a library. You have got signed copies of books. You've got books dedicated to particular areas. You've even got flying manuals.
Yeah, there was.
As well as a bit of artwork and all sorts of stuff. So just stuff that's been donated, raising funds for the museum. I think you'd need to allow yourself a certain amount of time within your visit to do that, because there was some really special books in there, and it covered every bit of everything you could possibly want. So land as well as air and all sorts, and even a few instrument bits and pieces in there as well. Treasure trove. But then we went from there to go and look at in the restoration hangar to find a big close sign.
Yeah. Sorry, we are closed.
It was quite devastating. We noticed that one of the doors was open, so we had a little sneaky peek inside. There were some examples in there being worked on in some way or another. They were actually doing some conservation work on the hangar itself. And one of the big things in which I noticed, which I hadn't noticed before, was the roof structure in the hangar, and that it was all made out of wood. And yeah, that was quite awesome. I hadn't taken that moment to be that geeky and look at a roof structure of a hangar.
Just remember, it's a historical site.
Yeah, it is.
Some of the hangars are new, but some of the hangars are the real deal. And you could see time had taken its toll on some of the timbers. 3
of the hangars are original hangars, but some of the hangars have been taken down. The interesting fact that you might not know, when they were filming the Battle of Britain film, they earmarked a couple of the hangars that were due for demolition and blew them up.
Oh, wow. I wonder if we could get permission to do something like that.
What, to blow a hangar up?
Yeah.
I'm not sure we'd be allowed back if we did it.
No, I don't think so. I can imagine there'd be a lot of emails back and forth.
Yeah. We wandered down past all the hangars and we went to the last hangar near the exit, which is the hangar where they have all the flying examples that are stored at the museum.
Yes. A lot of private collections in there.
Yeah, some owned by the museum, etc. So they're all there. This is where it gets really exciting, because as we're wandering through, lo and behold, we spot 2 Mustangs.
It's in the distance, in the very far back.
Far, far away from where we were walking. But yeah, so I was a bit cheeky while Malcolm was standing there away from me. I approached a mechanic that was there and said, I wonder if you can help me. My name's James. I'm from the podcast. I've got a very blank look.
You didn't say the podcast, I hope.
No, I said, my name's James and I'm from the Just Making Conversation podcast. We're here on a special visit. I did have the Just Making Conversation t-shirt on, and I very nearly did go, this is me.
This is my face.
And I said, look, I wonder if you can help me. The big fella over there, he's all right at the moment. He's calm. He's been challenged by international podcasts to make a P-51. And we're here to try and get as much reference information as we can. I don't suppose there's any way you can help us, is there? And the guy just went, I'll be back in a minute. and then came back with another mechanic and said, "This is the guy that looks after the airplanes."
Yeah, and my day got very good from there. I think he was enamoured by our interest and our excitement and passion looking at the aircraft that we were talking about. And he just said, "Come and have a look."
Yeah, he actually said duck under, and I laughed because I'm like, yeah, look at him. He's not going to duck under that rope, is he? Come on. On all fours, Malcolm went under the rope.
I wasn't going to get any lowly rope stop me. Yeah, we weaved our way all the way through the hangar, through the other aircraft there, and we were presented with two amazing Mustangs. One's the P-51D, called the Hun Hunter, and the one that was the P-51B, called the Berlin Express, which is the very type of aircraft that we came to look at, that I'm going to be building.
Yeah, a famous example, the Berlin Express. Obviously, Malcolm went into overdrive, looked like a 10-year-old in a sweet shop being told he could buy whatever he wanted.
It's not how I felt, though. The way I felt was like, imagine if, say we went out for dinner, and the table next to us is sitting there, is Nicole Kidman. And I think, oh gosh, I'd love to go and say hello. It'll be amazing to chat to her and find out about her life and talk to this amazing actress. And your mate goes, "Oi, Nicole." And all of a sudden, you're presented, and you're talking to the chap who works on it.
Yeah.
Looked absolutely brand new. So I got my camera out, which only had 70% battery, and plenty of megabytes spare, and went to town. And then I was reminded I was taking pictures of the wrong Mustang.
Malcolm was busy snapping away, and I'm busy talking to the mechanic. And I said, "Oh, okay. So can you tell me what the difference is on these types? Because I'll be honest, I'm completely ignorant. That I know very little about it." He was like, "Well, do you know what? You've made my day because I can tell you every inch of nook and cranny." So off he went, explaining the panelling, difference on the nose, etc., etc. I mean, he's obviously pointed out to me that, yeah, the example in front of you is the D and the one behind is the B. To which I said, "Oi, Malcolm, the B's behind you." And off he went. He disappeared.
And then I went round every inch. I photographed every rivet, every hole, every flappy bit, wingy bit, shiny bit, dull bit, dirty bit. We must have been there over an hour.
It was more. It's about an hour and a half.
Really?
Mm.
Wow. We weren't climbing all over it, just being in the presence of this amazing
I was
beast.
holding you back to stop you from licking the damn thing and climbing all over it.
I was fascinated by the way that the paint was reacting to the light. If you remember, I was showing you where the exhaust had changed the way that the metal was reflecting. And you could see on both sides, and I was trying to think of how I was going to recreate that on the model. That
was the fascinating part, was you were explaining that detail in the American hangar of the aircraft that was hanging up. I understood what you meant.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't really see it that well. But standing, I don't know 30 centimetres away from the panel, totally understand what you said then. And it made complete sense. And I had that realisation. I noticed all sorts of things all the way around the aircraft.
Yeah.
But one of the other fascinating parts I found as well is in this conversation we talked about the different types. One of the things that he said, the undercarriage, the door for the undercarriage was different on both types.
Oh.
The D had the hydraulics systems on the back of the door and on the front of the B, looking into the wheel bay. And all of a sudden, we're talking about the pipe work. We're talking about the switches, about the whole system. Absolutely fascinating.
Yeah.
And looking inside the D at the time, it was just a mass of pipes and all sorts of stuff. So then we scooted round to the B and had a look in the same area on the B. And wow, what a difference. Just amazing amount of difference. So, of course, at that point, we were joined by Malcolm, crawling on the floor, looking underneath the wheel bay, discussing what lever did what and all the different facets that were in that wheel bay. And I'll be honest, the guy was really, really helpful, and a massive thank you to him. But we could have sat there literally for hours just talking about the wheel bay and the differences between the types. His knowledge was fantastic.
Yeah. And he was pointing out the mechanical sensors. There's two separate ones. One for when the doors are closed and one for when the wheel is up, so the pilot would know. And there's no manual crank. I learnt that. And it was spotless.
Yep.
And I asked him, how do you keep this so clean? Do you remember?
He said, yeah, don't fly them. That was your response.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing that I loved was the fact that like I said, I could take a photograph everywhere, but when I did take photographs and I looked back at the pictures, the very centres of those rivets, the screw heads, the inside line, the middle of them was silver because the paint had been scratched off by the screwdriver head.
Yep.
So I don't know how I'm going to create that, maybe a silver wash or something, but that was an interesting detail that you wouldn't see from distance.
Yeah, yeah.
I got right up inside underneath the tail wheel. Being tall, as I mentioned, it's a long way down, and you don't get these opportunities every day. So on my hands and knees, on my back, and took photographs of the wheel well door, of the tail wheel, of the Mustang B. So if anyone needs any reference photographs...
Yeah, Malcolm's man.
The most thing I was interested in was how it weathered.
Yeah.
And even though it was clean, the mechanic could tell us where it usually got dirty. And I remember looking at reference pictures about blobs of oil on different parts of the B, and so I spoke to him about it.
Yeah, that was something you noticed, wasn't it? Was there's always a dark spot just below the exhaust of the engine.
I'm showing James now a picture of the Mustang, and you can see on the right-hand side of the aircraft there is a hole just below the exhaust, quite close to the wing root, and that hole there is the hole for where the engine needs to breathe. And a little bit of oil comes out of there occasionally, and the mechanic said that a little bit of oil goes a very long way in the airstream.
Yeah.
So what they do to keep it looking nice is they reroute that oil exhaust to the rear of the aircraft so that any oil comes out isn't going to affect the prettiness of the airplane. He also said that side where the breathing hole is that's where the canopy releases. So that's the side you get into the aircraft. So you would end up stepping in the oil. And I thought that was really interesting. Possibly a design flaw, huh?
I think it was probably just an easy route. Every engine needs to breathe, and having it right next to the engine was probably the most logical place to put it. And in fairness, they weren't really too worried if they looked dirty. They just were worried in the capabilities they had at fighting. Oh, that seems to me to be a really obvious thing to do if you are displaying an aircraft. Yeah, little facts like that were just amazing, wasn't it? The guy was just full of them. And watching you literally lying on your back underneath the aircraft was an hilarious moment, which I'm not sure I got a picture of.
Good.
But I might have. I'm not sure.
There was also another very interesting thing. I remember the hole that goes right the way through the Mustang.
Yes. Yeah, we did have a funny moment.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, there's a hole at the back that is used for jacking and towing and lifting, etc. And you can actually look right through and take a nice photograph of your friend on the other side, which we did. So we can use that as your profile picture.
Yeah.
There was loads of little tiny details that you wouldn't normally see. Some of the way the rivets, if they've been screwed in, had some sort of design on top of it, or like a motif or something. If it hasn't been screwed in completely correctly or all the way around, it wouldn't line up. So all the screws have to be screwed in exactly the right amount.
Yes, yeah, that makes sense.
Remember the picture on the side? One of the lines wasn't quite straight because it wasn't screwed in correctly. Brilliant. What an amazing experience it was. What an amazing time we had. The chap didn't want his name mentioned, which is fine, but if he ever does listen to this, thank you. You made my day.
When we originally spoke about this, me and Malcolm, we decided we were going to Duxford, and I was really anxious to try and make sure he got the best opportunity to get what he needed. So I'd made several phone calls, unbeknown to him, to restoration companies that flew them, all sorts. In fairness, the restoration company at Duxford were very, very helpful in the fact that they said that it was quite short notice, and obviously they were working on privately owned airplanes. The insurance wouldn't allow us in the hangars as such, but they may have been able to sort something out, but they couldn't on this occasion. They actually directed me to the Ultimate Warbirds, who fly 2 examples of the P-51 and unfortunately wouldn't be able to accommodate us. The museum themselves, we contacted them. Again, they were more than happy to arrange stuff for us, but unfortunately, because of time restraints for ourselves, we sort of jumped the gun a little bit and didn't manage to tie it all up. But maybe in the future, when they've got something on, we might be able to go back to and make a feature of. We were there a good 5-6 hours, I think, in all, at the museum.
Wow. Did not feel like that.
So if you're in the UK and you haven't been before, check them out. Go and have a look. It's a great day out. And obviously Duxford do a lot of flying events as well. I mean, it's a live airfield anyway. We saw the Spitfire flying around quite a lot. The Blenheim was out. You had the Bouchon flying around, doing a bit of practicing. You had Yak flying around. And then obviously you got your Cessnas and other bits and pieces because it's a live airfield. I don't know if you noticed that actually while we were there. But as we were walking up to the Land Museum, every time you heard an engine, everyone's sort of like looking to see what it is and tripping over each other, which is quite normal. One of the recommendations I have for you, if you are in the UK, try and go to the Flying Legends air show because they do what's called a big wing. So they get every example they've got of a Spitfire and Hurricane up in the air, flying in formation. Just absolutely breathtaking.
I guess there's not much point doing a Mooseroo Cup update.
Obviously, you've received the kit. Mm-hmm. You're in full reference mode and preparing.
I have chosen the... Actually, yes, we should do a Mooseroo update. Now I'm thinking about it.
Mooseroo Cup, the Mooseroo Cup. Let's talk about the Mooseroo Cup. Boom! Woohoo!
Yeah, so I have chosen the scheme that I am going to be doing.
Ooh.
I have not started the kit yet. I have taken photographs of bits and bobs of the model, and I put that up on the Facebook page. Go and have a look at that if you haven't already. And I'm looking forward to starting it in my new shed.
All hands on deck, isn't it, for getting the shed done? And that will be your first build in there.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, sorry. Be nice if it was, but it won't be. No, the first build is the Blackbird Testers one.
Uh-huh.
And then I've got the Corsair F4U.
Mm-hmm.
The 32nd scale Revel one. Doing that as a buddy build. And then I will do the Mustang. Unfortunately, actually a shed update. Unfortunately, I managed to put a screw through one of the wires.
Uh-oh.
So the electrician had to come back out here to look. He said, this is what you've done. So that's going to cost me a few pennies. Basically, it turns out that the entire shed, every single screw in the wall, is now earthed because the insulation I'm using is also conducting all the electricity. So, I don't know if that's super safe or super bad, but everything is off in there at the moment. Really upset me that I spent all this time, all this effort, making this place a mecca, a little heaven for me. And then I go and do something really stupid like sticking a screw through the bloody wire. Be careful, people, if you're working with electricity. So a lot of the panels are off and the insulation is down while I try and find that screw. As soon as I'm sorted, and I'll be in there.
Be good to see.
The Walnut Challenge is still on. That'll be finishing in November. I know there's some suggestions that we do a treasure hunt for Telford.
Chris Meddins suggested making a treasure hunt for it, for a donation, etc. Great idea, though, Chris. I loved it. But yeah, we might modify the idea in some other form.
Yeah.
There won't be donations required.
No, so, nothing like that. But what we'll do, though, is we will make a map so you can go and find and search for yourselves all the nuts at Scale Model World.
When looking for those vital reference photos, Google is not always your friend. With the wonderful work our restoration teams and museums do, it allows us to all but lick the aircraft and find out the nitty-gritty firsthand.
As we have said before, and will repeat ad nauseum, it is all about the people. Listening to knowledgeable people who can impart their passion and stories about a vehicle gives an extra dimension to the enjoyment of your build.
Next time, we will just be making conversation about other subjects relating to this daft hobby of ours. You've been listening to Just Making Conversation with James Skiffins.
And me, Malcolm Childs. Follow us on Facebook where we post photos, videos and other nonsense.
Find us on Spotify, Amazon Music, iTunes, Google Podcasts and all the others.
Let us know what you are just making and what your thoughts are on the conversation in this episode.
Thank you to the following supporters from buymeacoffee.com, Ninja/JMC Podcast.
Paint All the Minis, Peter, Brad, Warren, Tim, Black Rifle, John, Julian, Chuck, Mark, Becca Wahi, Simon the Jersey Gent, Steve Lee, Costas, Mark, Ray, Neil, Mike, Robert, Andrew, Drew, John, Mike, Jeff, Richard, Lynn, Gordon, and 6 others.
If you do show your support, leave your name so we can paint the roll of honour on the tail of the next episode. Goodbye.
Goodbye. And remember, always check it safe before you screw anything in your shed.